In a dark forest with tall trees, there is a small place where only a few people live. A girl who lives there wants to be free and thinks she can achieve freedom by performing some rituals. One morning, she goes to a lake to perform a ritual, but she gets interrupted by a man who is new to the area. He tells her he is a hydrologist and that he is there to examine the water. After being interrupted, the girl quickly gathers her things and goes back home. In their area, there are only two houses. One belongs to the Gardner family, which is the girl's family, and the other is owned by a strange man who works as an electrician. The girl's father always cooks for the family, but sadly, his cooking skills are not good enough to make his family happy. While eating dinner, the mother tells her husband to get some wine from their secret underground cellar to go with the dish he cooked. After they finish eating, the kids go to bed, while the parents spend some time together. As the night goes on, something strange happens. There is a movement like an earthquake shaking their house. The younger brother of the girl wakes up and leaves his room to see what is going on outside. After a while, there is a strange noise and a pink-colored light that surrounds their whole house. Suddenly, there is a loud blast that wakes everyone up. The parents discover that their youngest son is traumatized by the incident. The father and the eldest son rush outside to see what happened and find that a meteor has fallen in their front yard. The next morning, the father reports the incident to the mayor. Soon, the sheriff and other authorities arrive at their house to check out the meteor. The hydrologist also comes to investigate what happened, but his main goal is to interview the locals about their water usage and quality. The father suggests that the hydrologist visit the house of the weird electrician for more information, and the eldest son goes along to help. When they arrive at the electrician's house, the weird man offers the hydrologist a cup of java. The hydrologist refuses to drink it because it looks strange. He also recently noticed that the water he was offered is greasy and contains oily substances. The electrician insists that he doesn't smell anything unusual. The hydrologist explains that the odd color might be due to rust in the water taps and says he needs to take a sample to his tent for testing. The eldest Gardner son tells the hydrologist that they have been having problems with their water. However, their father always insists that the water is as fresh as can be. As they discuss this, a storm begins to brew, and the lightning is unusually powerful with shades of pink. While the storm rages on, the girl is outside, convinced that the strange lightning is a result of her rituals. She stands in awe watching the sky. Her father follows her outside and urges her to go back inside the house. While they are talking, they both notice that the lightning is striking the meteor in their front yard with great force. The strikes are so intense that they can hear an extremely loud noise coming from the meteor. At the same time, the hydrologist is in his tent testing the water sample he collected from the weird electrician's house. His tests reveal that the water is severely contaminated. Right after discovering the water contamination, the hydrologist decides to take a break and listens to the radio in his tent. Suddenly, the radio is interrupted by static. His phone rings, but when he answers, there is only static on the other end. He feels a presence near his tent and grabs his flashlight to investigate. He spots a shadow moving in the forest, a shadow with a pink hue. Suddenly, his car starts up by itself, even though no one is inside. Shocked, he moves towards the car to see what's happening, but it stops just as he reaches it. The next moment, the radio begins to play music, scaring him. Meanwhile, the girl's mother and father go outside to check on the meteor in their front yard. To their surprise, the meteor is gone. The mother feels relieved and happy that the meteor is no longer there. Her husband is also pleased, noticing that his plants are now bearing fruit. The next morning, reporters arrive at the Gardner house to cover the strange incident. They eventually report it as a UFO sighting. Watching the interview on television, the father is furious about the news report, feeling that the reporters twisted the facts. His children laugh at his reaction while their mother prepares dinner. As she starts cooking, the mother cracks an egg and finds blood inside. Shaken but continuing, she starts chopping carrots. Meanwhile, the father is still ranting about the news report, and he asks their youngest son to check on their mother in the kitchen. On his way to the kitchen, the son is horrified to see his mother chopping her own fingers, with two already severed. He screams and rushes back to his father, yelling that his mother is chopping off her fingers. The father quickly runs to the kitchen and hugs his wife to stop her, desperately trying to prevent her from causing more harm. The mother cries, explaining that she didn't know what she was doing and that she felt out of her mind. She apologizes deeply for her actions. The couple quickly decides to rush to the hospital to take care of the mother's injuries, leaving the eldest son at home to look after his two siblings. The following day, the eldest son is busy with his chores, feeding the alpacas. Afterward, he goes back inside the house. His sister then goes outside, calls him, and tells him that he needs to feed the alpacas because they are eating in the front yard. He explains to her that he already fed them, but she insists he look at the alpacas in the yard. Frustrated, he keeps insisting that he already fed the alpacas. His sister, equally adamant, tells him to just put the alpacas back in the barn. Shortly after, the sister spots her youngest brother whistling in the front yard and asks him what he's up to. He replies that he's talking to someone in the well. Confused because she sees no one there, the sister watches as her brother continues to whistle. As she starts heading back inside, she hears a strange sound and turns to see it's coming from the well. Feeling uneasy, she hurries indoors, but the eerie sound still follows, making her feel sick. Later, their father calls, but the conversation is plagued by static, and they can't understand each other. Frustrated, they decide to end the call. Meanwhile, the youngest brother remains outside, doodling monsters and aliens in his notebook, while occasionally glancing at the well. Outside, the youngest brother approaches the well and discovers a pink egg. To his surprise, the egg hatches, revealing a large pink fly. It emerges from the well and stares at him, almost as if it's studying him. Then the fly takes off, flying into their backyard. Meanwhile, inside the house, the sister is watching TV when the signal gets interrupted by static. At the same time, their wall clock starts moving unusually fast. While she's doing the dishes, she reminds herself not to vomit because she's cleaning the knife her mother used to cut her fingers. As she cleans the knife, the water turns red, making her feel dizzy. Water begins to overflow onto the floor, and she rushes to the restroom, overwhelmed by the situation. Once there, she quickly vomits into the toilet bowl, trying to regain her composure. The following moment, there's a knock on their door, and the sister answers it to find the hydrologist standing there. He notices she doesn't look well and informs her that there's contamination in their water. He admits he's not sure what's causing it and needs to conduct more tests in the lab. He advises her not to drink the water. After the hydrologist leaves, he spots the youngest child outside. Curious, he asks the kid what he's doing, and the child responds that he's playing with his friends in the well. The kid bursts into laughter, but the hydrologist doesn't see anyone else with him. After visiting the gardener's house, the hydrologist heads to the weird man's house to warn him not to drink the water. To his surprise, he finds the man kneeling on the floor, listening intently to his own invented telephone. The weird man hands the phone to the hydrologist, urging him to listen to the strange shattering sounds coming from it. The hydrologist observes the eerie noises, but remains skeptical. The weird man insists that the sounds are from the people beneath the floor, specifically aliens. However, the hydrologist dismisses this, suggesting it might be a geothermal activity. Despite the hydrologist's doubts, the weird man points out various unusual occurrences, like the static disrupting calls, radios, and TVs, as well as sudden changes in moisture and time. Still unconvinced, the hydrologist promises to return with more equipment to investigate further. Before leaving, he advises the weird man to drink bottled water for safety. Finally, the father and mother are on their way home from the hospital. As they approach their house, they spot a strange cat-like creature that startles them both. Concerned, the mother tries to contact her children to make sure they're okay. Unfortunately, no one answers the phone. Meanwhile, the youngest child is still outside, sitting by the well. Suddenly, a pink light emanates from the barn, catching their attention. The light seems to mesmerize their dog, who usually has a bad temper, and it runs towards the barn. After the dog enters the house, an eerie sound fills the air. Inside her eldest brother's room, the sister notices his personal computer monitor showing static. Strangely, the computer screen takes on a pink hue and emits a breathing sound. Mesmerized by the sound, the sister is snapped out of it when her brother bursts into the room, questioning her presence. Her brother shares his confusion, noting that it was daytime when he left the house, but now it's suddenly dark. Both siblings are puzzled by the strange occurrences. Suddenly, they hear the phone ring and rush downstairs to answer it. However, to their surprise, it's only static on the line, interrupting their attempt to respond. Soon, the lights start blinking on and off, sending them into a panic when they realize their little brother is still outside. They dash out to find him, only to discover their parents already outside. The daughter, who often practices rituals, grabs a book of spells she believes can help protect their family from the strange events. Without hesitation, she starts a ritual, using a sharp object to make cuts on her skin and drawing symbols all over her body. Blood spills across the room as she performs the ritual. Meanwhile, their father drifts off to sleep while watching the TV, which shows nothing but static and a pink-colored screen. The youngest brother ventures outside and finds his older brother sitting quietly in the front yard. Together, they decide to head over to the barn. Upon reaching the barn, the eldest brother is shocked to find their alpacas transformed into strange, alien-like creatures. They flee in terror as the alpacas chase them out of the barn. As they make their escape, their mother rushes toward the youngest child, but they all freeze as the bizarre creatures catch up to them. Suddenly, a massive pink light envelops the mother and youngest son, merging them into something inexplicable. Their bodies melt and fuse together, causing them immense pain and sorrow. Helpless, the father urges the eldest son to call 911 for assistance, but their attempts are thwarted by the continued interference of the static signal. Meanwhile, the daughter, who had been performing her ritual, emerges from her room and is horrified by the sight of her mother and brother's transformation. She screams in shock at the tragic turn of events. Next, the father attempts to start their car to take his wife and son to the hospital, but unfortunately, the car refuses to start. Disheartened, he returns to the house, only to find his wife and youngest son still in agony from the sunlight. Seeing their suffering, he decides to move them to the loft to shield them from the sun's rays. After securing them in the loft, he resolves to deal with the strange, alien-like alpacas in the barn. Armed with his rifle, he heads to the barn and shoots the alpacas one by one in hopes of resolving their predicament. Once the task is done, he returns to the house to check on his family. With a sense of relief, he informs them that he has taken care of the alpacas. Meanwhile, the daughter and the eldest son devise a plan to escape the house, but their attempt fails when the horse they intended to use runs off. In a desperate move, the eldest son jumps into the well, believing their dog is trapped there seeking help. However, it turns out to be a trap, and he becomes ensnared by the strange pink light emanating from within. As the sister attempts to escape, she is apprehended by her father and confined with her mother and brother in the loft. Meanwhile, the hydrologist becomes suspicious of the strange occurrences at the gardener's house and enlists the help of the sheriff to investigate. Upon reaching the house, they are drawn to the loft by the daughter's screams. Upon opening the door, they witness the horrifying scene of the mother and son's transformation. Shockingly, the father suddenly appears and in a desperate act, shoots his wife and youngest son with his rifle, ultimately ending their lives. After the tragic events, the hydrologist carries the daughter to the sheriff's car, but their escape is interrupted when the father attempts to shoot the hydrologist. However, the sheriff reacts swiftly and shoots the father, injuring him severely. Rushing to her father's side, the daughter declares her loyalty to her family and their home, refusing to leave. Moments later, the daughter undergoes a transformation, turning into an alien-like being. Suddenly, a portal opens in the sky and bizarre images flash before the entire area distorts. The movie concludes with a massive explosion, engulfing everything in ash, leaving the hydrologist as the sole survivor. He reflects on the inexplicable events, realizing that human science cannot explain what occurred in that place. And with this, the movie comes to an end. Thanks for tuning in, guys.